Hey guys, thanks for joining. In this video, I'm going to show you how I made this epoxy resin slash walnut slash maple chessboard. I didn't make the pieces, just the chessboard. I'm not good enough to hand carve wooden chess pieces just yet, so maybe eventually down the line when I get better at this stuff. But anyways, I hope you stay tuned, I hope you learn something, and I hope you try the project out for yourself. Thanks.
So as with any project, you're going to want to grab your wood. Sorry, not that wood. Alright. Bad dad joke aside, I promise no more. I got some maple here, I got some pine. I'm cutting these to 1.5 inches wide by at least 6.5 inches long, and I'm going to explain everything later. You're going to need 4 strips of each. 4 strips of maple and 4 strips of the filler wood. The thickness is not critical here because you're going to really hide it, especially with the trim, the walnut trim around the sides or whatever you choose to use. The epoxy you can pour to any depth you want. So again, thickness doesn't really matter, and you'll see why later. Now, I chose to go with 1.5 inch squares because it came out nicely in the end that I could run it through my 12-inch planer. I think the international chess standard is 2-inch squares, but I'm not a chess master. It's not that critical for me. If you want to be technical, then make 2-inch squares or greater. Once you got everything prepped and cut to whatever width and thickness you want, let's go ahead and line them all up and glue them together. Just get a nice bead of glue on there. You don't need to go crazy, it's just a chessboard. This isn't going to be holding any serious weight or anything like that, so just get a nice slather of glue on there, you'll be good to go. Now, for those beginners out there trying this, don't over clamp. You're going to squeeze the pieces apart. Just get a nice even pressure, that's all you need. Again, it's just a chessboard. Now, at this point, if you haven't fallen asleep, you've been paying attention, you heard me talk about the thickness not mattering, and this is why. This is just a 1/2 inch piece of plywood scrap I had laying around. I cut it to 12 inches by 12 inches, and the cut pieces that are going to glue together, they're actually going to glue to this base as well, so it'll give a nice flat bottom. You want to try to be as accurate as possible with your cuts at all times. Practice makes perfect, so no exception here. Try to get it as close to 12 inches by 12 inches as you can. Moving on to the walnut border. This is a piece of walnut slab I had left over from an epoxy slab table I'd made, so I'm just cutting some strips here. They're about 1/4 inch thickness, which is going to go all the way around the plain board. So I do have a planer. I'm going to run these strips through to get them exactly to 1/4 inch. If you don't have a planer, you could do it by hand with a piece of sandpaper, old-fashioned way. But anyway, just take your time. No rush here. Get it right. And hey, while you're sitting there watching, hit the subscribe, like button, comment below. Let me know your thoughts. All the feedback helps. It really does. It helps me stay motivated to keep making videos. I do enjoy making the videos, but hearing from you guys, comments, and how I can get better really helps me out. So I appreciate it in advance. Thank you very much. So with all that sappy stuff out of the way, let's go ahead and unclamp our glued up strips. Now we're going to rip these down to 1.5 inches width. You may notice I'm cutting a lot more than I would normally need. I'm actually making 2 chessboards, so you really only need to rip 8 of these. Just keep that in mind. After you're done ripping them, you can see the chessboard starting to come together. Go ahead and flip them around and orientate them. Grab your clamps, grab your glue, and then we're going to clamp and glue some more. Now, like before, again, just an even bead of glue. Don't go crazy here, just get it slathered on there a little bit, nice and clean, don't make a huge mess. And with the clamps, just nice medium clamping pressure. Don't over squeeze. Sorry to be a broken record and keep repeating myself, but I've learned the hard way, don't over squeeze. Once it's all dry, let's go ahead and unclamp it, and then we're going to glue it to the base. And glue over my little smiley face friend here. So just ignore me. I think I was drunk when I was doing this. Anyways, just with the glue, again, get a nice and even coat, and then clamp it down. That simple. So unlike before, this is where you want to be a little more forceful with the clamping, I've noticed. Sometimes the pieces can warp or twist or cup, and you really want to clamp these down nice and tight to get it as flat as possible so it glues and dries that way. You can see my sophisticated clamping system here. Once you're done with all that, let's move on to the trim, or the border. Now this is the walnut I cut earlier. I'm using the miter saw feature on my table saw to get 45-degree bevel. Be careful here, safety is very important. If you're cutting these nice thin strips, they can chip and break off and pieces can go flying. Keep your hands away from the blade, just be very careful, and just take your time, line everything up. I like to scribe everything according to actual pieces because sometimes measurements can be slightly off. So if you haven't noticed, I did screw up and I did not record the actual epoxy mixing and pouring, and I apologize for that. But it's pretty simple. The stuff I use is 2-to-1 mixture. It's very easy to mix up and pour. It's no big deal. I have plenty of other videos showing me mixing epoxy and pouring it. I'll put a link up top. You'll see it right there, hopefully. And you can go watch those and educate yourself if you haven't worked with epoxy before. But it's really straightforward and easy, I promise. Now back to the matter at hand. I'm running this through the planer, as you can see. I started with the bottom because I really want to get a true flat reference before I start planing down the top. That way I'm not planing down unevenly and have more of a trapezoid than a perfect, cube or square. So just run it through nice and slow, take a little bit off at a time. Moving into the final stages with sanding. I'm not going crazy here. I'm really only sanding up to 180 because I use a product called Rubio Monocoat. It's a 3-to-1 oiled accelerator mixture, and they don't recommend sanding beyond that. And even then, if you go to 180, they say to water pop before you apply the finish. It's a great product to use. I highly recommend you check it out. Very easy. It smells great on top of everything else, and it's very durable. They use it for hardwood flooring and dining room tables, etc. And it really brings out the true finish of the grain. So, but whatever you're going to use and follow their recommendations for how far to sand. Because in the end, I'm not sponsored by them, and it's a free world. Use whatever you want to use. So you might think that's 50 grit sandpaper looking back at this video, but the way I shot it, but that's not. It's 150. I think I just cut the one off when I used the scissors. Anyway, just edge break everything, get all the sharp corners off, that way you're not hurting somebody by accident. And speaking of Rubio Monocoat, just buff it in, let it sit for a few minutes, and then buff it out. A little bit of this stuff goes a really long way, so you don't really need to use a lot. I know if you were to look in the price, it may seem expensive, but I promise you that little can goes a very, very long way. And the final piece is this felt paper. I like to apply this to the bottom just to give it a nice finished appearance, a little more professional look. I mean, if you're just making it for yourself, do whatever you like. But I do make these and sell them, and it refines it a bit more, that's all. So that's really it, guys. I appreciate you watching the video. I mean, this is pretty straightforward. There are some more complicated aspects to this project, but nothing that can't be overcome with a little time and dedication and experience. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, subscribe, comment if you did. Hell, comment if you didn't like it. I do appreciate any feedback, bad or good, so thank you in advance. Now, let's have some scotch and learn how to play chess.